Welcome to Sisters of the Shadows, where mystery meets meaning. Together, we'll explore stories that spark curiosity and connection. Step into the circle, the shadows await.
Tonight, we're stepping into a story that feels less like a true crime and more like a curse that settled over one family and never left. This is the case of William Bradford Bishop, a man who had everything society told him he needed: an education, a respected career, a beautiful family, and a home in one of the safest neighborhoods in Maryland. But behind closed doors, something darker was growing, a pressure he couldn't outrun, a fear he couldn't admit, and an ego so fragile that one bad performance review became the spark that burned his entire world to the ground. On March 1st, 1976, Bishop murdered his wife, three sons, and his own mother, and then vanished like he stepped off the map of reality itself. So settle in, turn the lights down, and breathe with us as we unravel the man who couldn't bear to be ordinary, and the haunting that followed in the wake of his destruction. This is Sisters of the Shadows.
Welcome, shadow listeners. I have to say that is insane that he did all of that and just vanish. Okay, this case is one of those that gets under your skin because it's not just violence, it's ego and entitlement, and a man who could not handle being told no. Bishop was brilliant, a linguist, a foreign service officer, fluent in multiple languages, but he was also fragile. He hated authority, hated criticism, hated the idea of being anything less than exceptional. And when he was told he'll never be promoted again, that was it. That was the moment everything snapped. So, question: do you think this was a slow burn, or do you think he snapped all at once? Like, what this years of resentment building, or one final straw?
I feel like it had to have been resentment building. Like, sure, you can snap, but there's stuff that's got to go on before you get to that point. At least that's what I would assume. But also, some people like that snapping could just be instant and uncontrollable.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that that was definitely years of resentment building. Uh, was this catalyst the final straw? Probably, but did this one event cause him to murder his entire family and just disappear? No, I definitely think it they tell you here in his personality almost like he didn't like authority. He hated criticism. He hated being told no, and we all kind of know those type of people that, don't like to be told no. So, I feel it was an unfortunate inevitability.
I totally agree.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah. What really gets me is how normal this family looked from the outside. Lorana, his wife, was described as patient, supportive, and socially connected. She held that household together emotionally, and the kids. There was three boys, and his mother lived with them too. It was a full, loving home from the outside. But inside, Bishop was stewing. He was resentful, withdrawn, and unpredictable. Instead of dealing with his failures, he turned on the people who loved him the most.
Okay, so let's walk through the verified timeline to kind of get an idea where this started. Erica, when did all this start?
Yeah, so we started here in March 1st, 1976. Inside their Bethesda home, Bishop kills his wife, his mother, and his three sons. He uses a blunt instrument, most likely it was a sledgehammer or a firearm. He loads their body into his station wagon. Then we move to March 2nd and 3rd, where he drives to North Carolina, and their bodies are found in a shallow grave near Gibsonville, partially burned. His car was later found abandoned near the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and then nothing. He just disappears. So, question, when you hear this timeline, does it feel planned to you or does it feel like someone's spiraling and improvising as they go?
That's I don't know, because a part of me wants to say that it was planned in a way. What if he, already done had his final straw, and now it was time for him to plan how he was gonna orchestrate this so it won't be too messy, and then he can just vanish, like, go
Mhm.
whatever, and without leaving a trace.
I feel like, in my opinion, this is definitely showing evidence of somebody who is improvising on the go, in my opinion. Just because if this was planned and well thought out, I don't think it would have been an act of rage. I don't think he would have used blunt force objects. Him loading the bodies into his station wagon, not having a pre-planned place on where he was going to put these bodies gives, hey, I'm throwing them in the back of my truck. I need to figure out where to go. The shallow graves and the partial burns tells me that he kind of didn't know what to do with them. Sounds like he tried setting them on fire, but realized that burning bodies takes a really long time and doesn't really necessarily get rid of evidence. So then he tried to bury them. But if this was pre-planned or, well thought out, they wouldn't be shallow graves. He would know that at least 6 feet to at least get the body to look like this was a natural grave, and then just abandoning his car. Gives like, "I'm running. I need to get out of here," and just the disappearing is the most eerie part for me because where did he go?
Right? And yeah, like you said, the car just being left there and easily found is the main thing for me. I would assume he probably had these feelings beforehand, but the actual happening that happened, I feel like was not fully planned out.
And the details are so unsettling. He bought a shovel, a gas can, a sledgehammer the same day, all paid in cash. He was seen calmly buying tennis shoes after the murders. His passport was never found. And because of his government training, he knew how to disappear. He knew how to blend in. He knew how to survive. There was sightings all over the world: Italy, Switzerland, Ethiopia, South America, but none were ever confirmed.
I think that's super crazy. Now, with more detail of knowing, okay, maybe he did buy this stuff ahead of time. The killings and stuff may have been planned, or like Erica said, he had these feelings prior to, but it just seems like the murders themselves were so haphazard. But with his government training, the disappearing and blending in and surviving, I guess, really worked for him. But it's the lack of closure that haunts people. The idea that someone could do something this horrific and then just walk away. No trial, no justice, and no answers. So if he really did survive, where do you guys think he went? And do you think he lived a full life somewhere, or do you think he died in those woods?
I feel like he had to survive for some amount of time. How long that really was is really going to depend on those specific conditions he was dealing with. But of course, we know he was trained. So I would say he probably got away for some amount of time, but surely after all of this time, he couldn't have survived this long, I don't think.
Yeah, I have to agree. With his training, I feel like, yeah, he did survive, but I don't think now, like, yeah, I don't think for this long, but I do really think that he did survive. But where did he go will be the good question.
Exactly. It sounds like there's quite a few potential sightings. So really, he could be anywhere. And then next, I wanted to talk about places connected to this case. People swear that they feel something at these locations. First, we have the Bishop House, then the burial site in Gibsonville, and even in the Smoky Mountains where his car was found. People are experiencing cold spots, shadows, whispers, and a heaviness that just doesn't go away. It's like the family's spirits never got to rest.
Before we move into our next case, I want to sit with something for a moment. The Bradford Bishop story doesn't end, it just stops. Like someone ripped a large page out of the book and walked away with it. And that unfinished energy, that sense of something left behind, is exactly why this case bleeds so easily into the next one. Because when you look at the darkest corners of human behavior, you start to see a pattern, patterns of control, patterns of obsession, and patterns of love twisted into something unrecognizable. And so that brings us to our next story, one that isn't about a man who vanishes, but a couple who spiraled together. A couple whose love story was so toxic, so warped, that it became one of the most disturbing partnerships in modern crime. And so tonight, we're stepping into the world of Paul Bernardo and Carla. I'm going to butcher this. We're going to call her Carla so I can respect her name.
This case is different from Bishop, but it hits the same nerve. The idea the evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a husband. Sometimes it looks like a wife. And sometimes it looks like both. Paul and Carla weren't just partners in life, they were partners in violence. They fed off each other, they escalated each other, and together they created something far more dangerous uh, than either of them could have been alone.
What makes this case so chilling to me is that Carlo wasn't just a bystander. She wasn't trapped. She wasn't manipulated into silence. She participated. She enabled. She encouraged him. And the victims, they were young. They were vulnerable. And in one case, heartbreakingly, one of them was Carla's own sister. This is one of those cases where the more you learn, the more your stomach drops.
Let's start off with Paul and Carla met in 1987. He was 23, she was 17. And from the very beginning, their relationship wasn't normal. It was very obsessive, it was controlling, it was built on dominance and submission. Paul was already violent, already dangerous, and already attacking women as the Scarborough rapist. But when he met Carla, he found someone who didn't run from his darkness. She leaned into it. So when you look at Paul and Carla together, do you think that this was a mutual evil, or do you think one corrupted the other?
That's tough one. Because she wasn't forced into doing these acts with him, I feel like it probably were together. The only like a mutual evil.
Yeah, I agree with that. Surely, though, he was more evil and she was just kind of susceptible to it. So
Yeah.
tricky, though. But yeah, clearly she was complicit, and that's really concerning.
Right.
And next, I wanted to talk about Tammy, which was Carla's little sister. This is one of the most disturbing parts of the case. Carla knew Paul wanted a virgin. She knew he was obsessed with Tammy, and instead of protecting her sister, she offered her to him as a Christmas present. She drugged Tammy with animal tranquilizers from her job at a vet clinic. Paul assaulted her while Carla watched and participated. Tammy choked on her own vomit and died. Paul and Carla cleaned the scene before they called 911. So, question, how do you even begin to understand someone who would sacrifice their own sister like this? Do you think Carla was brainwashed, or was she always capable of something this truly disturbing?
I think Carla was already truly disturbing prior
Right.
to these events. I don't think that within the short span that she's known Paul, that he's manipulated her to the point of pure evil and just plain debauchery. I feel like you could argue he coerced her into bring the sister or whatever, but she participated. She
Mhm,
watched. That isn't somebody
mhm.
who's there
Yeah.
unwillingly.
Yeah, that's disturbing. That's very like, as a Christmas present, that's very disturbing. So, after Tammy's death, Paul and Carla didn't stop. They escalated. They kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered two more teenage girls, Lisa Mahaffey and Kristen French. They filmed everything. They kept trophies. They played the role of perfect suburban couple while hiding horrors behind closed doors.
So I wanted to touch on some creepy facts about this case that just really freaked me out. First of all, Paul kept a lock of Leslie's hair in his wallet. Carla styled Kristen's hair and did her makeup after she died. They watched their own tapes like home movies. They danced together in the kitchen while the girls were tied up in the next room. Paul wrote love letters to Carla describing their crimes as romantic memories. And I had a question for y'all. What details about their relationship unsettle you the most? Is it the planning, the filming, or the fact that they treated this like a bonding activity?
I would have to say all three.
Right.
I had to say all of it. All of it is insane and like, what the fuck moments.
The whole case compared to the first one that we went over, completely unsettling. Like,
Hmm.
to know that their relationship was built and molded off of just pure evil and these menacing acts is crazy. But the fact to know, like how Erica mentioned, that he wrote love letters describing these crimes as romantic memories, like, are you insane? Or Carla, I think Carla, although she may have been young, she needed to be evaluated a long time ago because you have to be a
Hmm.
different type of crazy to not only
Yep.
participate in these crazy acts with your significant other, but then also take it upon yourself to start grooming the women that die.
Right.
It's disturbing, and I feel like it sheds some light on maybe just even mental health not really being prioritized medically the way it is now back when this happened. That has to play a role in this.
Right.
Eventually, Carla left Paul, not because of the murders, but because he was abusing her. She went to the police. She played a victim. She claimed Paul forced her into everything, and the prosecutors believed her. They offered her a plea deal, 12 years in prison, in exchange for her testifying against Paul. But then the tapes were found. The tapes that showed Carla participating willingly, laughing, directing, helping. But then the deal was already signed. Carla walked free after 12 years.
That's just insane to me. She got away with something truly unforgivable. Those tapes changed everything, but not in time. Cases like this remind us that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a couple in love. Sometimes it looks like a sister. Sometimes it looks like a neighbor. And that's what makes it so terrifying.
Thank you for stepping into the shadows with us tonight. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And remember, some stories stay with us because they're unfinished. Others stay with you because they've never stopped happening at all. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, rate, and share, subscribe to Sisters of the Shadows on all platforms. And until then, stay curious, stay safe, and stay out of the shadows.
Until next time, shadow listeners.
You've been listening to Sisters of the Shadows. Share this episode, follow us on TikTok, X, and Instagram, and keep the light close until next time.